and welcome to today's episode of The Pagan Parlor. Today is Friday, January 7th, 2022, and this is our first episode of the new year. I am your host, Maximilian Pensword, but you can call me Max, and here in this podcast, we explore a variety of things related to paganism. At this point, I would like to give a notice and reminder that paganism is a broad term that envelops many different pantheons and belief systems, and as such, this podcast will be focused on paganism as a whole and not on any specific branch of it. Each episode contains a short lesson on a stone or metal, a pagan promotion segment, a story, myth, or legend, a segment I like to call Keeping Up with the Christians, which you will hopefully find amusing as well as informative on what the Christians are up to lately, and an audience Q&A segment. Now, since we're all busy people, we'll jump straight in with a quick ritual. This ritual is intended to join the energies of the listeners in with the energies of the host, and the same in reverse, as well as basic protections from the ill intentions of others. Feel free to join in at home, or wherever and whenever you find yourself. I will now light a candle, and as I do so, I invite in all beings of good intent into the ritual space. Humans, gods and goddesses, spirits and the fae, come and join together in good nature and to play. Come old, come young, come scarred and burned, it matters little when there's a lesson to be learned. Come in good faith and you will be safe, but come with ill intent and your mind shall get bent. Bring us together in storms and good weather, keep us from pain and from those who are sane. For the harm of none and the good of many, we call to the gods and they are many. Blessed are we, so mote it be. This week, the stone suggested for research by our designated stone selector, Kip, from the Sorcerer's Guild on Facebook, is the diamond. As such, let's get ready to learn something magical. This week's lesson uses information that comes from Wikipedia.com and Wikipedia.org. Diamond is a crystal that is formed when the element of carbon in its solid form, whose atoms are arranged into a crystalline form, are put under intense pressure and heat. Most natural diamonds are between 1 and 3.5 billion years old, but with modern technology, synthetic diamonds can be created, either by heating and pressurizing carbon or by chemical vapor deposition of hydrocarbon gases. Diamonds can be clear, yellow, brown, gray, or rarely blue, green, black, pink, or more. They rate a 10 on the hardness scale and have been used as religious icons and engraving tools since the early parts of human history, ever since they were first discovered in India between 3,000 and 6,000 years ago. Currently, they are found all over the world, but most of them come from Africa. In a magical sense, diamonds correspond with the element of fire, the astrological signs of Sagittarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Libra, and the Sun as well as the planet Mars. Additionally, diamonds are worn to protect against insanity, irrational fear, as well as poison. In medieval Italy, the diamond was known for reconciliatory properties, preventing and resolving marital disputes. A diamond which is set into gold and then worn on the left arm is said to give courage and strength as well as protecting one during battle. Worn on the left hand, it is said to protect against evil and bad luck. But if you stare too long at a diamond, it is said to confuse and dazzle your mind. Beyond this, diamonds can be used in combination with other stones in order to intensify their energies, especially when used for healing. Diamonds are relatively inert and are not known for having any particular health risks in and of themselves, but there is quite a lot of discussion over the source of the diamonds, as diamonds that are not ethically sourced often come at the expense of child labor, poor worker conditions, landslides, mine collapses, and other accidents. Diamonds that come from mines that utilize these kind of conditions in order to make money are referred to as blood diamonds. So if you're going to purchase a diamond, don't be a dumbass and buy a blood diamond. Next, we have our Pagan Promotion section. Herein, I will highlight one person of interest, celebrity, or pagan-owned business per week. This week, we are featuring a member of our pagan community, and as I had the pleasure of speaking with them, information regarding their life comes directly from them. Tara, a fellow member of the Sorcerers Guild on Facebook, began walking her path roughly 6 years ago. She had been drawn to her path all her life, but due to a Christian upbringing, took her time in finding where she was going to be. Feeling that Christianity was not a good fit for her, she began practicing divination with regular playing cards as a child, but didn't really know what she was. As she grew into herself, she knew that she was an empath, which caused her quite a bit of confusion until she understood her gift. Despite this, she remained an atheist for the majority of her life until experiencing a bout of anxiety problems, and at that time she encountered chaos magic through the medium of Grant Morris comic books. And as a result of this, she was able to regain control over her life, and from there she began delving deeper and deeper into the craft, as happens with us all. Despite actively practicing magic at that point, she was still considering herself an atheist, but much like with Christianity, she also felt that this did not properly fit who she was now. Then, 2 years ago, during the winter solstice, she was performing a simple candle spell for prosperity, and decided on a whim to switch the 4 elements for the 4 Titan pillars of Greek mythology: Hyperion, Krios, Lepidus, and Coeus. When she did this, several solar-powered lights with depleted batteries shone more brightly than ever before or since, and a sense of calm and joy filled the room. Ever since then, she has been a Hellenistic pagan, or one who follows the Greek gods and pantheons. Presently, she works at a major retail corporation known for low prices and large stores, but is hoping to be able to transition into a work style that would allow her to live off of her art and her crafts. She is not currently a member of a coven, but has been in a small one in the past prior to it being more or less dissolved due to its members moving away. She wishes that she would learn tarot better and loves that magical symbolism is everywhere and in everything, and that tools are simply objects that we turn into symbols which we then use to access our inner power and manifest change. I had the opportunity to talk with her a bit, as I mentioned before, and after I conducted a brief interview via Facebook Messenger, she seems really kind and down to earth. Also, she is an essential worker who has been working through the entirety of the pandemic, so she deserves our appreciation and applause. Blessed be Tara. The next section is on stories, myths, and legends. In this portion of the podcast, I will retell a legend, myth, or story related to the gods, magic, or anything else that I feel to be paganism related. Information for today's story comes from ancientegyptonline.co.uk. This story is titled Isis and the 7 Scorpions. Following the murder of Osiris, Isis tried to hide from the god Set, who was brother to herself and her husband Osiris. But he found and imprisoned her in a spinning mill, and there he left her to weave her husband's funeral linens. Meanwhile, the god Thoth, who maintained the library of the gods, realized that Isis would be in grave danger if her brother Set was to realize that she was pregnant, and so he came to her aid. Thoth freed Isis from the mill where she was imprisoned, and advised her that she should go into hiding within the marshes with the 7 scorpions, whose names were Tephen, Masatetef, Peter, Tejetef, Matet, Mesetet, and Bethan, and whom had sworn to protect both her and her unborn son. Armed with this information, the goddess Isis disguised herself so that others would not see her true form, and began the long journey to the marshes. As it was such a long journey, she decided to stop at the houch of a rich woman by the name of Usert, in order to ask for sustenance and a place to sleep. Upon setting eyes upon Isis, who is currently wearing the guise of an old beggar woman, and the scorpions that kept her company, the rich woman rudely slammed the door in her face, which enraged the scorpions. Isis then continued on to the house of a poor fisher girl, who then welcomed her in warmly and invited the goddess into her home, offered her food and shelter. The scorpions, however, would not so easily forget the slight of the rich woman Usert, and so they combined their poison into their leader Tefn, who then bit Usert's child. The poison ran through the body of the small boy, and his mother ran through the streets distraught while looking for help, but there was none who could aid her. When Isis heard the cries of the child, she was overwhelmed with pity for him, and so she returned and called out the scorpions' names, one by one, and commanded the poisons to leave the child's body. When the rich woman realized that she had snubbed the goddess Isis, while the poor girl had invited her into her home, she decided to make amends by giving all that she owned to the poor fisher girl, which caused the goddess to rejoice. That was the story of Isis and the 7 scorpions. Next week we'll have a story from the Greek mythos, but for now it's time to move on to our next segment. Now let's move on to the segment I like to call Keeping Up with the Christians. In this segment, I take a look at what the Christians are doing lately and dissect it from a non-Christian's point of view. Part of it's just a report on their goings-on, and part of it's just making fun of them, so I hope you enjoy it. This week, in Keeping Up with the Christians, there is a massive wildfire in Colorado that caused over $500 million in damages and destroyed over 1,000 homes, making it the most destructive wildfire in Colorado state history. Now you may be wondering, why is it making this segment on the Christian news? The answer is that according to an article posted on nypost.com, the fire started on the lands of the controversial Christian sect known as the 12 Tribes. This Christian sect has reportedly praised black American enslavement and has allegedly used child labor in their businesses. The Southern Poverty Law Center has called them a white supremacist cult with roughly 3,000 members, and it forces their members to give up their earthly possessions to the group and then live in a commune, while the 12 tribe groups own various businesses, some of which utilize said child labor to produce their products. Meanwhile, these children receive harsh disciplines and beatings for such crimes as not singing loud enough during religious functions. A neighbor of the 12 tribes reports having seen a fire on their property just before the wildfire started. Meanwhile, the investigators have already narrowed it down to having been started within that neighborhood. Now, once again, the Christians have gone and scorched the earth while pursuing their bigotry. In other news, according to an article on BBC.com, the Pope has called upon people without children to adopt all the numerous children that are in orphanages or foster care around the world, stating that the love of an adopted or step-parent is a godly thing. Now, up until this point, I was following him. Adopting kids that need a home, good, with you. But then he went on to say such things as people that choose to have pets instead of children are selfish because they're giving the love and care that the children need to the animals instead of allowing the animals to take the place of children. Additionally, he said that choosing pets over children takes away our humanity. Now, this is a bit upsetting to me. Does he never think before he speaks? I mean, honestly, what about all the people who are mentally ill and have no business child rearing, but choose to have a pet so as not to feel utterly alone? What about those people who legitimately want nothing to do with children and so would not be capable of providing a loving home? Should the orphans be forced to live with them and feel bitter for their presence? And then when he says that it takes away from our humanity to choose to have pets instead of children, he makes it seem like the best thing a person can do is either to have children or adopt them. And yet I cannot recall ever hearing about him adopting or fathering any children of his own. So does this mean that the very leader of Catholicism in the modern world has just admitted to being selfish and lacking humanity? It would, except he doesn't have any pets himself. So it's not that he's selfish, nor that he lacks humanity, it's just that he's incapable of giving love to children. But considering the track history of the Catholic Church, that might be for the best. On another note, according to an article on LATimes.com, there is an ongoing case which is set to hear oral arguments on January 18th over whether or not the rights of Harold Shurtleff and his religious organization named Camp Constitution were violated when they were denied permission in 2017 to hang a flag outside of Boston City Hall with a Christian cross on it. The right to display a flag with the organization's emblem has been granted to LGBT pride groups, groups supporting transgender rights, Malcolm X Day, Mother's Day, and even the flags of other nations. This group is the first and only group to be denied permission to fly their flag alongside the United States flag and the Massachusetts state flag, and they're butthurt because they want to be able to display their religious symbol on a government building. Now, I don't think I have to explain this to everybody, but anything that hangs on a flagpole outside of the government building is subject to the separation of church and state. These idiots need to get over it. They need to put their time and money into helping people like their slave master says in his book, instead of tying up the courts with whether or not they have the right to have their feelings heard. Well, that's it for Keeping Up with the Christians for today. Tune in next week and find out the latest Christian drama. Now it's time for the audience Q&A. This week, I got a very interesting email in the Pagan Parlor inbox. They claimed to be from Norton Antivirus and stated that my trial was up and that I was going to be billed for almost $300 for a 1-year subscription. They even provided a phone number where I can call them for questions about the billing or to get reimbursed. Now, rather than call that number and listen to them ask me for private details that they would use to actually take my money, I simply sent them the following reply. Hello, billing department. I never signed up for or used any Norton devices or programs. Additionally, this email is only used for my podcast and it has never had a phone number or credit card attached to it. Good luck with your scam, and be sure to check out my podcast, Pagan Parlor, and give it a 5-star review. I don't think it was the response that they were hoping for, but since I didn't have any actual questions this week, I thought I would share it with you all. Beware people claiming that you are about to be billed for something if you don't call them right away, and never give away your private information to someone who you do not know and trust. To anyone who wants to chime in, if you have questions that you want to ask or comments that you want to leave, suggestions for the show or content suggestions, or even if you just want to send me your death threats and hate mail because you're a butthurt Christian and can't stand to hear me talking smack about your religion, please feel free to send them in at paganparlor1313@gmail.com. Well, that's all I have for today. Links to the podcast will be posted in the Sorcerers Guild and the Pagan Daily News Facebook groups, thanks to gracious permission from the group admins. Also, if you haven't yet, make sure to check out the Pagan Parlor Facebook page and the Pagan Parlor Facebook group in order to stay up to date on current episodes and discuss their contents with the other listeners and myself. Thank you for tuning into the Pagan Parlor. Finally, I'd like to say one more time that any questions, comments, suggestions, or death threats can be sent to paganparlor1313@gmail.com. Don't be shy, I get very little email in the inbox. The whole of the law shall be do as thou wilt, but harm none. Blessed be, and don't forget to blow out your candles.